Chapter 50. Removal of Ignorance. I bow down Sri Ganesh, I bow down Sri Saraswati, I bow down the Guru, I bow down the family Dinty, I bow down Shri Sita Chandra, I bow down Shri Satguru Sai Nath. There is no limit to my obligation to my parents, who gave me birth as a human being, and that I was not born as a worm. I was not a torment to my mother in the womb. I was not born blind, lame, squint-eyed, stuttering, nor deaf and dumb. I was born hale and hearty, completely well-formed. I was descended with God's grace in a high Brahmin caste family, whom even the gods respect, and was very fortunate. As we are born millions of times, there is a mother and father for each birth. But there's a great rarity of such parentage which helps me in avoiding the cycle of birth and death. The one who gives life is really the father. The other performs the thread ceremony. The third one is he who nurtures and fosters. The fourth one is he who protects from fear, troubles, and tribulations. In this world, there are all one on an equal level. But there is no true father other than the merciful Sadguru. Listen to him in wonder for real achievement. The one who impregnates the womb of the mother by whom one is born is the giver of life. He is the father in the popular sense of the term. But the Sadguru is the remarkable father. He does not spend his seed, and yet he gives birth to his son without the use of any bodily organs. He fully grants his grace. I bow to him who frees one from the cycle of birth and death, the cloud of mercy, the light of knowledge, who gives the deep and the true knowledge of the Vedas, the best of all gurus who pervades all. I bow to the Sun who is the remover of darkness in this world, one who has the knowledge of the self and who is the most distinguished amongst the saints, who is the moon for the minds of the devotees, who is like Chakos, like the wish-willing tree, the best of all gurus. Unfathomable is the greatness of the Guru Daya, describing which words are inadequate and speech fails. It would be better to remain silent and keep one's head bowed at the Guru's feet. Unless one has practiced great austerities throughout the earlier lives, one does not have the darshan of a saint to remove the threefold calamities. One who desires to have spiritual gains, liberation in his own welfare, should surrender to a saint. Then he will lack nothing. Twice blessed is the company of the virtuous. How can its greatness be described? The virtuous devotees attain discrimination, detachment, and supreme bliss near them. Sai is supreme consciousness. Only from the formless state he took form. Who can definitely describe his desireless state? He lovingly tells his own interesting story for the devoted and loving devotees, who are the listeners, being compassionate towards them. The stories are his temple. The sense of ego is crushed by the touch of his hand on one's head and gives way to the reverberation of the feeling of I am that, inundating the entire world with joy. What power could an insignificant one like me have to describe his fame? He himself has brought to light this book, born out of the love of his devotee. By his grace, I roll in the dust at Sai's feet, greet the assembly of listeners, bow to the sadhus, saints, and virtuous people, and lovingly embrace all. Sai tells the stories as an easy sort, which are laden with a code of moral rectitude. Perpetual peace was his ornament. Even the great saints meditated upon him. It is not correct to compare him to the sun because the sun sets, not the moon because it waxes and wanes. This Sai is always perfect. Hemad humbles himself at his feet and lovingly appeals to the listeners to listen to this narration with faith and complete attention and with interest. The earth is well ploughed and the seeds sown. But if you, the cloud of mercy, do not rain, can there be a harvest? When the stories of the saints are heard, there remains no sinfulness. Merit sprout on listening to the stories. Take advantage of this and rare and favorable opportunity. The four types of Mukti hold no attraction for us. Enjoy an unwavering devotion to Sai. This is our supreme achievement. Since we are not at all born, what association could we have with the Mukti? Let devotion to the saints awaken within us, which alone will purify our inner selves. Where the sense of you and I does not arise, which should really be a natural state, we need that devotion without duality. We are Sai for this boon. Now, this is the only request, listeners. When they take the book in their hands to read the subject matter, the reading thereof, and the reader should all become one. Ignore Hemad Pant, as he is not the author of this Satcharitra. He is only the instrument for the welfare of the devotees. If by good fortune you have got an oyster, you throw it away. You have lost a pearl. Why concern yourself about the Ashwatha people tree flourishes? Do not lose hope of your welfare. Here there is no one but Sai who speaks the words and writes them also. He himself is subjected to be listened to, the one who makes you listen and also the listener. This union or oneness should not be lost. Where the ears are not ready to listen, whether with respect, and where the mind is not concentrated, then there is no listening or reading at all. Then how could anyone know the meaning? While listening, do it with humility. Listener should only deem that Sai is in their mind. Only then the correct listening is accomplished. Let the oneness be continuous. Then just as the waves of the waters mingle with all waters, so all the inclination or activities of the senses would be one with Sai. One only in this way the knowledgeable learn about the spirituality. Those who are interested in humor will be delighted with the wit, and those who appreciate poetry will be able to enjoy the poetic stanzas. Everyone will enjoy this book. Be it so. Earlier in this Satcharitra, in the 39th chapter, the advice that Samartha gave to one of his foremost devotee has been mentioned. When the devotee was near Baba, he was reciting the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita from the beginning at that time. On the one hand, he was pressing Baba's feet, and on the other, he was reciting that prayer. When the 33rd verse was over, he started with the 34th. With a calm mind and with full absorption, he was uttering the words very, very softly, but others did not know the source. When he started on the 34th verse, Sainath felt like raising his foremost devotee and putting him on the righteous path. The devotee's name was Nana Chandorkar. Then Baba said to him, "Nana, what are you muttering? Why don't you speak aloud? For some time I have been watching that you are muttering something, but your voice is not distinct. What is the secret?" Then Nana spoke clearly. "I am reciting the Gita. So that I may not disturb others, I am muttering the words. Let that be for others. But for me, speak clearly. Do you understand what you are reciting? Let me know clearly, Shri." Then saying the verse in loud voice beginning with Tavidhi Pranipatina, Nana showed what he was saying with frustration. Baba was satisfied on hearing it. Then when he was asked for the meaning of the verse, Nana said in detail the meaning as given by an earlier Acharya. Baba shook his head. Again he asked Nana, "Nana, consider the third metric foot. Upadakshati te jnanam." Try to concentrate on it. In that, after the word ti, there is a sign of suspension for the letter. Or if read as a gyan, consider if meaning becomes opposite. Shankarananda, Jnaneshwar, Anandgiri, Sridhar, Madhusudan, and other contemporaries make its meaning based on the word gyan, and this is accepted by everyone. I also know that, but why should we knowingly be deprived of the marvel that can be enjoyed by inserting the suspension sign? After speaking thus, Sai, the cloud of mercy, showered the drops of nectar of advice for the devotees who were like the Chakor and Chatak birds. I have already narrated earlier chapter 39. But all the readers of the Sai Leela magazine, in which Sai Charitra chapters were being published, were not amazed by this meaning. However, some had doubts. This is amazing. So that they may be satisfied and the matter may be properly proved, I will make a little more effort to convince them of the rightful use of this word agyan. Some would even doubt whether Baba knew Sanskrit. There is nothing unknown to saints. The reason for doubt seems to be something else. Who does not know the saying from the Shruti that one who has understood the one has knowledge of everything? Sai had knowledge of the self. What do the saints not know who can see the whole universe as clearly as an amlak fruit held in their palm? Even the sun is illuminated by them. One who has that knowledge of that one, how can he have lack of any knowledge? Whatever is contained in any Vidya is known to them. What is so important about Sanskrit? There are some readers of the Sai Leela who say Nana is dishonest. This is arisen and contributed by his own imagination. He has written about this unwanted suspension indicating his ignorance. He has himself created this fictitious story about the suspension and the ignorance in relation to it. He has unnecessarily raised this fruitless wraggling to show off his great knowledge. Where there was no suspension, he has introduced it. In the place of the word gyan, he has derived the word agyan. In this way, he has put forth a contrary meaning of the Gita. But looking at the facts and things deeply over it, there is no inconsistency in the 39th chapter of Sai Leela. Whatever be your opinion and whether Nana is honest or dishonest, do not believe what he has narrated to be nonsensical utterance. Leaving aside your aversion for Nana, the reader should not be swayed by emotions. When you set aside the apparent or superficial, he will be found to be innocent. Sai Leela is one of the best magazines. Without reading the 39th chapter, it would not be easily possible to understand the present chapter. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter called Gyan Yajna, there is a discourse by Sri Krishna on ignorance, and 34th verse is about ignorance. Taviti pradipatina परिप्रशेना सेव्या उपदक्ष्यति ते ज्ञानम ज्ञानिष्ठतवा दर्शिना. This is one of the important verses of the Gita. In the third metric foot, there is a suspension before the word Gyan. Thereby, Agyan appears. If the suspension is not considered, the word Gyan can be undoubtedly read. There is no objection against that. That is generally the meaning that is elucidated. Liberation is achieved through knowledge. These words from the Shrutis are accepted by all, but it is not binding on the philosophers to teach Gyan, knowledge. I am the Atma, the pure witness, untainted, knowing, free and liberated, pervading the whole manifestation, supreme consciousness, unblemished, filled with the bliss of unity consciousness. But I am neither ignorance nor am I the product of ignorance. Understand me to be the soul as Brahma, and know me to be the treasure in the highest consciousness, and also know me as bliss. I am Brahma. Yajurveda is a saying that always inspires me. Know that this only is pure knowledge. I am a sinner, unfortunate and godless. These feelings spring from the mind of ignorance. This Maya is an ancient eternal power. Because of ignorance, one is in a state of being bound. Because of knowledge, one is free from all bondage. This is the state of being from times immemorial. This total misconception of name and form is the complete illusion caused by Maya. Words are inadequate to describe Maya, and it is very difficult to conquer. The abode of Maya is in the merciful thoughts that arise. The state of being born free certainly arises from the imagination. Liberation is achieved through knowledge. This principle, written from the Shrutis, is eternal true. But until the karmas arising from sins are annihilated, it is impossible for knowledge to dawn. One who is impressed with pure knowledge knows that he has abandoned all desires. He is not bound by Maya. There is no place for passions or emotions in him. A supremely knowledgeable person like Shaka came to sad end also due to doubts. Ignorance is born due to doubts which cannot be removed without the Guru. When a doubt enters the mind of a knowledgeable person, even such a person becomes egoistic. Even a huge pot of milk gets spoiled by a drop of a sour gruel, or all the milk is spoiled. Therefore, it is important to understand ignorance at the outset. Once that is removed, the mind gets purified. After that happens, knowledge manifests infinitely, and the mind will attain undisturbed absorption in contemplation. He who is concentrated on riches and fame is yet craving for sense enjoyment in spite of having had it, and is insanely thinking of wife and children. His knowledge is nothing but ignorance. Thus, one who is obsessed with wealth, sons, and wife does not know his well being, even though he may be knowledgeable. Therefore, so long as he is without devotion, his knowledge is veiled by ignorance. All living beings are full of ignorance. Becoming free from ignorance, become knowledgeable, and then transcend that also. That stage is Brahmarup, or embodiment of Brahma. Certainly, when ignorance disappears, knowledge manifests. He who is knowledgeable is forgiving by nature. Till the pride for body is not lost, he is under the control of Maya. Avatars like Ram and Krishna, saints like Sanat Sanak and others, the most knowledgeable ones, have Maya as their handmaiden, but she has fooled others. Though the self resides in the hearts of all creatures, no one knows this. Such is the inconvincible state of Maya. It has unfathomable power of illusion to wield it. Unless the false pride of the feeling, I am the doer, I alone am the enjoyer, is left off, and one does not surrender to the dweller in the heart, one cannot attain self-liberation. Discriminate between the transitory and the eternal, and listen to sacred texts. Chant, meditate, and contemplate on them, and enrich yourself with the 6 virtues such as Shama, Dhamma, etc. Only that will drive away ignorance. The world is different from me. I am small and limited. The feeling that I am the body, this is unalloyed ignorance. In this science of Vedanta, which propounds knowledge, there are 4 necessary antecedents. The writer, in all compassion, has explained them in detail. The befitting person, the subject matter, and the relation between the two are the 3, and the 4th one is the purpose. After carefully explaining the purpose, there arises what is called the removal of ignorance. Complete unity of the individual soul and Brahma happens to be really the main subject of Vedanta, and the removal of ignorance involved in understanding the principle of this unity happens to be the purpose. Therefore, removing the ignorance from the very root is itself the attainment of bliss of self. Hence, using all contrivances, it is necessary to destroy ignorance. Until one has removed the feeling of duality, he cannot be called knowledgeable. The knowledge of a person who has bodily pride can be called complete ignorance. He makes a show of his own knowledge but performs improper acts. He is as good as dead. He is like the sleeping Kumbhakaran. For him who does not behave in accordance with the Vedas and does not follow the rules of the 4 castes, the only means to purify his intellect is the removal of ignorance. Even Brahma and others have been deluded by the 3 gunas such as sattva, etc. Also, by words such speech, touch, form, taste, and smell, and on account the sex organs and the tongue with different permutations and combinations, all the movable beings, the world, are encircled by ignorance and Maya from times immemorial. They are engulfed by passions such as anger and hatred and surrounded by ignorance. Every being is born by ignorance. For its pure form to manifest, it is necessary to break the ties with ignorance, desires, and the fruits of past actions. The cow's teeth are so full of milk that it oozes out. The tick or cattle sticks fast there itself, but it enjoys the blood, so how could it have taste for milk? Notice the frog and the humble bee. The beautiful lotus houses them both. But the fragrant pollen is around which the bee hovers, while the frog feeds on the mire. Though a repository of knowledge is before a person, a foolish one, is attracted by ignorance, and ignorance itself appeals as knowledge. What use to him is instruction in knowledge. When not when ignorance is removed totally, the knowledge of Brahma will manifest itself. Therefore, it is necessary to explain what is ignorance at the outset. Know that there is nothing purer than the knowledge of Brahma in all the three worlds. The teachings of that knowledge has a lot of reverence. Without it, life is in vain. If this Brahma were an effect on par with objects cognized by intelligence, etc., then there would have been at least some sense of enjoyment which would have been helpful in perceiving it, enabling one to say, "This is that." The principle of Brahma is intelligence in its purpose, but that which goes beyond the sense of enjoyment is perceivable by intellect and is the one that these Smritis declare, but the Shrutis do not agree with it. When intelligence, etc., does not exist, then really the instrument of cognition becomes extinct. Then how can the existential character of Brahma remain as the base for resort? Whatever is experienced by the sense, all that exists and nothing else. This is well known to all. Brahma then does not at all exist. This will be meaning of all that is said so far, but if it is true, it will be calamitous, making intelligence alone exist through and through, helping one to understand the chain of objects that are subtle, subtler, and the like. Let it intelligence also dissolve, but there too it says in the form of the combination of existence, because undoubtedly the soul is the root cause, the world, and all the dissolution is ultimately rooted in existence. If a stone is thrown in a pot, its form is broken, leaving behind the pieces. Though the shape of the pot is destroyed, the pieces indicated that it existed. Although the effect in the form of the pot is destroyed, the existence in the pot knows no destruction, as the pot's shards remain for continuity. So indeed is the sense of existence in them. At no point the dissolution of the effect is one which ends in its void. The dissolution is rooted through existential character. This is valid as is seen in the cognition of Sat having the idea of Sat, which is existence. All the holy places and vows are holy or pure, but the holier and purer is knowledge of the Lord. And without the knowledge of the Lord, singing bhajan and worship is meaningless. The mind is tainted by ignorance. That mind cannot be cleansed without devotion to God, and without devotion knowledge is not born. Therefore know what is ignorance at the outset. After it is described and you derive the lessons therefrom, only then will the bondage be broken. Devotion is the only means to do that. If colarium is applied to the eyes of a child born with 4 feet foremost, it can find wealth which is underground. Similarly, when devotion is practiced, ignorance is destroyed and knowledge dawns. Knowledge itself means attainment to self-realization, for which the main thing is to destroy ignorance. Unless devotion to God is achieved, the power of Maya is boundless. Knowledge and ignorance are mixed together. Throw away ignorance and pick up only pure knowledge, like discarding the stones or impurities from the grains of rice before the rice is cooked in warm water. The Lord exists in all living beings, doing a yajna for knowledge and other worship. If one sees Krishna, that is the Lord, as all-pervasive, ignorance burns away, leaving behind knowledge. Now let us see the nature of yajna for knowledge. The pillar to which the sacrifice is tied is the I am Brahma examen. The 5 elements of the universe are the courtyard for the yajna, and the animal that is sacrificed is the belief there is difference between a living being and God. The 5 senses and the 5 pranas are the only requirements for this yajna. In the hollow space of the mind and the intellect, kindle the fire of knowledge. The being is the one who performs yagya, offering oblations of ignorance in place of the clarified butter. He is completely engrossed in the bliss of the self, and that being is bathed in the water of purification at the end of the sacrifice. In conclusion, without the oblation of ignorance in place of clarified butter, the fire of knowledge can never be kindled by burning the difference between a living being and God. Manifests the knowledge of unity consciousness. Just as a clean mirror is covered by dust in the light of the fire by smoke, similarly, knowledge that is controlled by anger and desires is covered by ignorance. Just as Rahu hides the moon or moss covers the water, Maya puts a veil over the self-luminous knowledge. The intellect of the great knowledge once is corrupted, and they fall into disgrace. They know how to remedy the situation, but do not follow it. They act as they wish. Though able to see, they act like the blind, leaving aside their good attachments. They behave in a shameless manner. They become a source of worry on account of evil association, almost by force, and continue to act at their free will. Those who have retired from worldly life return as householders and with determination indulge in forbidden acts. They accept loathsome objects as most pleasant. Those mistakes and sins which they have avoided by effort they fall into due to ignorance of fate. What could be said about such a state? Is this the wisdom of a knowledgeable person? Even if there is very knowledgeable person and does not wish even for the shadow of sin, he gets deceived like a moth by the light and does not distinguish between the good and the bad deeds. He knows fully well that doing a sin is ignorance, but because of the inclination for desire, he does not pay heed. All these deeds are performed due to desires. Desire is the cause of all destruction, which matures in the form of anger. When there is obstruction to the fulfillment of desires, then thwarted desires becomes anger. At every step in hinders liberation, this course of action is an impediment to knowledge. This living being is caught up in the difficulties caused by anger and desires. The embodiment of Brahma is very close and dwells near knowledge on the same level. There is anger and desire drawn one without there being any water, drown there one without there being any water, burn one without there being any fire, kill one without there being any weapon, and bind one without there being any rope. Even the knowledgeable cannot withstand them and are defeated when they wag against them. They have the power to bring about the destruction of the universe and swallow the living beings without their knowledge. Desire and anger envelop the fortress of knowledge like an membrane, just as the killer snake encircles the roots of the sandalwood tree. These senses, intellect, and mind are the abodes for those desires. With the help of these, the knowledge of the living being is deemed, and he is lured. If you want to obtain sandalwood, then you will have to kill the snake. Remove the wheel of desire and anger and attain the store of knowledge. Without killing the snake, can anyone attain the sandalwood? Without killing the black snake, can you obtain the buried treasure? Similarly, to achieve Parabrahma and self-realization, the only means is to remove the curtain of Maya. Therefore, at first control the senses, thereby anger and desire will be destroyed. A living being is controlled by anger and desire, and knowledge is wielded by ignorance. These senses are subtler than the body. The mind is more subtler than them. The intellect is subtlest compared even to the mind. The Supreme Being is subtler than even the intellect. This most high supreme truth transcends all worldly existence and righteousness. That supreme Spirit is the most beneficial, that is the nectar sweet, eternal self, the pure witness, untainted, eternal, free and liberated. That indeed is the principle of the non-duality state. That alone is the nature of supreme bliss in opposition to sentence. That which is known as Panchakaram is worry the display of the form of Maya, the only instrument of superimposition and sentient. It is necessary to be conscious of this. These five elements, without their judicious combinations, are called the subtle elements. They are evolutes with the vital airs, the senses, the mind, and intelligence, and the subtle body of the soul, do appreciate that the five elements combined in the five ways give rise to cross part of the Atma, and this cross body of the soul. The knowledgeable ones call it Virat, which is cross or the material body. The cause of the origin of cross and subtle body is the ignorance of the real nature of the self. Know that with its appearance, which is avyakrit, the body is the cause of the Atma. This is known as the causal body, which is associated with the reflection of sentency. It becomes the cause of ignorance, which is known as the unmanifest and not evolved. The reason for all this is neither imperative or parity nor both. For the body to be destroyed, the only ignorance, the only knowledge to be attained is union of Brahma with the Atma, to be in state of one's own. From that is known as moksha or liberation. There is no moksha other than to be in one's own proper form. If only knowledge about the union of Brahma with the Atma is achieved, then ignorance is removed. Therefore, it is necessary to describe what is ignorance is. That which has become solid because of ignorance has reached a state of being tainted. That state came to be called as existent. It thus assumed the state of being donated or connoted by the word. Though originally it was beyond the ken of the sense, it was made undesirable by word. It was only then that the form entered the mind and assumed the form of Omkar. Blessed indeed is him whose body falls while meditating upon this Omkar Brahma along with the remembrance of the Lord. So be it. From the spoken word Om, that is the form of Brahma which is unseen, there appears the unmanifest. From this unmanifest arises the principle of this Mahatvata, which is an evolute from the unmanifest, and it is from that the ego is born. Ego originates in the subtle rudiments, further giving rise to the gross elements, and really this world is born from these five elements. Cosmic ignorance is really the indication of the form of this world, and for the demolition of this, the science, it is necessary to explain ignorance. That which is pure consciousness is the pristine from totally pure and unsouled. Whatever is different from this is solid. It is not proper to mix the two. Know that the Brahma is very different from that which is expressed in words. Therefore, with the help of the power of proper instruction, it is necessary to set aside the layers of ignorance. The mind experiencing a dream in sleep sees or visualizes three worlds by itself without eyes. Ignorance is the cause for all this. While perceiving one entity, it appears to be different, like a rope that appears in the form of a snake and silver in the interior of mother of pearl. Perceive only the rays of the sun. People call it a mirage. But this is only a sort of Maya before which even the knowledgeable ones become helpless. When one brandishes the burning wood round and round, what is seen is the firebrand. Even here it is the wonder of illusion. While seeing the real fire, there is no room for firebrand. Similarly, the expanse of the allurement caused by illusion creates the world which does not really exist. When the illusion is removed with the help of such resolve, then only this mundane existence ceases to exist. I am the body, she is my wife, and this is my home. All this is futile exercise. Even those who are called knowledgeable and learned but are deeply involved in the attachments to sun, cattle, etc., that is, to earthly possession, do not enjoy the slightest of happiness. The experts in the branches of knowledge endowed with intelligence do not consider any other person as their equal. This is a great conceit within the heart that causes discontent. This itself This itself illusion or ignorance state of science, and the primordial matter is the chief. At the outset, the knower has to start by removing these, and then only knowledge would arise. This knowledge, however self-luminous, it is not necessary to give instructions about this. When ignorance is destroyed, the execution of knowledge will manifest. It is like a gem full of luster which is pressed down with dirt and dust for years together, and the memory of which is extinguished. Then at some point of time, by chance, accompanied by action, aided by dharma, it comes to hand. It appears that all its pristine luster is lost because of its having been with stones and clods of earth. Then, on cleaning it well and removing the dirt and dust, it acquires its pristine luster. Similarly is the state of knowledge realization. Dirt and dust are ignorance. This ignorance wields the knowledge. After removing the dust and the dirt, the jewel will shine easily. Discrimination between the transient and permanent objects destroys sins. That itself grants refinement and recitation, and that itself creates knowledge. This world is a marketplace of Maya illusion, flooded with real and fake objects. There are many customers ready to take the fake objects, believing them to be real. But many wise ones' wisdom is dissipated, and ascertaining the fake from the real, one must know the indications which cause this deception. Therefore, it is necessary to have an assayer to distinguish between the real and the fake. He, the Sadguru, will easily show the difference, and ignorance will finally disappear. Once ignorance is removed, then knowledge, when it remains an illusion, will be easily removed. Whatever remains is the self. Know that there is no need for visible proof. Though the view of wisdom is clear, it is dimmed by the darkness of the imagination. Darkness flees with Upadesh, spiritual instruction. What remains then is full knowledge. In reality, if there is a garland lying on the way which, when seen at eventide, seems like a snake, the only reason for this is ignorance. When you light the lamp hidden in the pocket, ignorance vanishes. The real form is clearly seen. This semblance to the snake automatically disappears. Therefore, the remedy to do away with the harm or evil of ignorance is Upadesh. Therefore, the wise ones bury themselves by giving the Upadesh of what constitutes ignorance. Being presently in the mundane world due to prarabdha actions in the past life which were done in the past born out of ignorance at the outset, these knowledge is necessary. Knowledge is truth, and Brahma is eternal. Ignorance, illusion, etc. are all the cause of erroneous conception. When this erroneous conception is removed, then only will the misconception about knowledge be dispelled. He who has not lost the pride of the self, who will call him wise? He who is abhorred of wrongful pride, can he be called ignorance personified? That which is called a flood of illusion, in which the world is fully engrossed, is about mundane existence, for which ignorance is the basic prop. It arises out of ignorance, and its grandeur is born of ignorance. When there is plurality instead of unity, then that too has its refugee in ignorance. When there is little light and little darkness, twilight or dim light, the rope on the road, though a rope, appears to be a serpent, and one is terrified. The misconception that it is a snake is merely ignorance. That ignorance has veiled the truth. Until this ignorance is dispelled, the mind does not become free of fear. To some it appears like garland of flowers, while some see it as stick. In short, it is all a misconception and a decline in excessive misjudging. One who follows writing the way of the Vedas and has a belief in God, he alone is qualified to have the knowledge of Brahma. One who is attested for numerous lives can never be so qualified. Those who see the world as a dwelling place for movable and immovable persons and things, and not as manifestation of God in various forms, are confused. They never escape from the cycle of births and deaths, and for them the sense of Brahma is unattainable or extremely difficult to attain, whereas it is very easily attained by those who are qualified. No amount of sermonizing is effected here, nor acceptance different Vedas nor the intellect to understand the meaning of various spiritual books, nor being well versed by reading or listening to such books. By the use of words, one can gain bookish knowledge. But can it give the knowledge of Brahma or truth? The intellect is capable of discrimination, but Brahma is truth. Brahma or truth is not at its command. The Shrutis have a vehement desire to describe it, but have not attained Brahma or truth. They have reverted to describing the glory of Brahma or truth and given up their desire for the pursuit of that knowledge. The six orthodox schools of philosophy have spent themselves and indulged in arguments till this day, but the self remained undescribed and did not come within the purview of words. The great learned ones became like the fireflies before the sun in respect of the self. Once the self is realized, the meaningless maze of words disappear. Observe that in the world, in darkness of the night, all activities are carried on with the light of lamps. But when the sun arises at dawn, the people disregard the lamps. Therefore, that is, knowledge and self, which is not a subject to be described in words, how can it then be taught? Therefore, the narrator must have the aim of destroying ignorance only with words. When worship is done with the belief and wisdom of existence of the self, then only is the Atma propagated and reveals the knowledge of the Supreme Spirit, becoming extant to the worshipper. In the place of Atma, if one meditates on Paramatma, and there is no distinction made between the two, and worship is done in